and they were not only men. We estimate around 30% of them being ladies. Their success and hard working encouraged Germany to invite more of them to come and to work for the German Wirtschaftswunder. Since they were regarded as temporary, they were only provided with the opportunity of hard working and living in special Heimats allocated for them. Writers like Günter Wallraff well documented the abuses and hardships endured by the Turkish immigrant workers. His well-known book, Ganz unten, Lowest of the Low, from 1985, documented Wallraff's posing as a Turkish guest worker and the mistreatment he received in that role at the hands of employers, landlords, and others. The numbers of Turkish immigrant workers grew and the need for them increased when the German economy was booming. After some time, being Mediterranean and having strong ties to the family, the first generation, we call them the early comers as first generation, decided to bring their spouses or children to stay with them, since temporariness was giving way to permanency. So a situation which was planned to be temporary was unintentionally becoming permanent for immigrants themselves, for Germany and Turkey. As in most cases of unpreparedness, this complex social phenomenon posed risks and problems for all parties involved. Germany, until mid-90s, never thought that immigrants would be permanent. Turkish immigrants were Gastarbeiters, and most of all, Germany did not regard itself as an immigrant nation for a long time. Maybe some people still believe in this today. Thus, until recent past, there was very limited or no infrastructure for a successful integration policy to be implemented. On the part of Turkey, it was able to export its excess workforce to an allied country which needed labor. With this step, it was possible to decrease unemployment rate in Turkey. And finally, Turkey was happy to receive the remittances of these Gastarbeiters, which was much needed at the time of economic hardship and during times of the petroleum crisis. However, neither Germany nor Turkey felt the need to invest enough to satisfy the social and human needs of Turkish migrants for long years. Their temporariness was an excuse for a long time for not doing enough. However, after having understood that they were going to stay and probably become permanent, we still can't claim that everything was done. Everything possible was done. Teaching German, for example, to the first generation was never on the agenda, which obviously was an important key for success in all fields of life and for a successful integration. In the example of Berlin, during the times when the Berlin Wall separated the two sides, Turks were pushed to live on the outskirts, on the border areas like Kreuzberg and Neukölln. They usually did not have the chance to live in better neighborhoods. One can think that this was, and maybe still is, due to their economics and social status, but a more responsible and visionary approach would have been to give them the opportunity through convenient rental subsidies to live in better accommodation and in better areas. This would have decreased the rate of living in ghettos, as the migrant population would be more evenly distributed in the city and mix and mingle better with the locals, finally adapt better. In discussing integration, I think we should not miss the security aspect for it. I think today's discussion in Germany everywhere is focused on this. For integration to take place, the immigrant should feel himself or herself secure, safe, and in peace. Unfortunately, as the so-called racist terror has demonstrated to us all, immigrants have not been in full safety in Germany. There have been many cases of fires, arsons, and murders. The numbers present a gloomy picture in this sense. Coincidentally, it was discovered that 10 people, 8 of them being Turkish, were murdered in an organized way over a long period of time. It seems the assumed perpetrators of these crimes were so much out of control that they were captured only after several high-profile bank robberies in a relatively small and low-populated area of Germany. It is particularly worrying that former East German states, where the least number of immigrants or foreigners live, can be particularly problematic in terms of racism. Some segments of the society, despite the fact that they have not been in contact with any foreigners or immigrants, can be reactive to people who may look different. When we consider the fact that the world as a whole, and Europe in particular, is undergoing an economic and financial crisis which may last for at least a decade, we genuinely worry that racism, discrimination, and intolerance may rise in Europe and in the whole world in the medium run. There is not a day that passes without such incidents, like the Breivik case in Norway, latest incident of shooting and bombing in Belgium, recent attacks on the Africans and non-Europeans in Italy, and there are other examples that you might have followed. Since the last 15 months, we have recorded 115 arsons or fires in the immigrant districts of Berlin. They may be purely coincidental, but certain signs have been common in these incidents, like burning the baby carriages in apartment halls, burning paper or recycled material, or furniture left in front of the buildings, and others. Some buildings were attacked by unknown arsonists for 4 times in a row in 6 months. You can imagine the psychology of immigrant families living in such places. However, we are very much encouraged by the high-level German reaction and the promises made by the high authorities to uncover these racist terror crimes. However, the families of the victims have been waiting for too long for justice to happen. In some cases, they were questioned as the perpetrators. We shall be following closely the developments in this regard, and we are happy to note that the general German public opinion is very much activated by these events. In the face of these events, I think we may like to look more carefully to a case of a German banker who decided to put on the table a book full of raw social arguments, which commercially made him a euro millionaire. Despite the fact that his profession is not sociology or immigrant policies, but finance and banking. Perceived general acceptance of such ideas by the wider public disturbed very much immigrant communities, mostly the Turks and Germans of Turkish origin. To our dismay, such ideas bring racist and discriminatory ideas to the center of politics and society. In such an atmosphere, racist ideas can be reflected more comfortably, which is a real danger for an open and democratic society. The writer probably underestimated the damage he might have given to the good international image of Germany by his book. But when we consider the rise of racism and discrimination in Europe, maybe many people in other parts of Europe also share such ideas. We may establish links with these problems and 9/11, general situation in the EU, in the Middle East, economic, financial hardships and crisis, and consequent unemployment among the young people, too much and too fast globalization process, which left many behind, even in the developed world, in wondering whether this process has been beneficial for them at all. But for example, globalization in itself is a Western, developed world product. While turning the whole world into a global village, it strengthened the traditional powers of Asia as well. When global capitalism started moving its production centers for more profit to Asia, ancient civilizations of this old continent were poised to claim back their old statuses as ancient powerhouses that were once potent to shape the world. A new recalibration is taking place globally, and the balance has already tilted to Asia, to the east. If today we could consider at least partly that racism, discrimination, and xenophobia are fed by reactions to this general phenomenon, then we could think that Western societies may be in betrayal of their own ideals and values. Coming back to the more local component of this general phenomenon, in my view, on Turkish migrants' integration in the German society, I'd like to echo that integration is a two-lane street, whereby the immigrant and the receiving society should have willingness to accept each other. The framework for such a relationship should be based on universal human rights, the right to exist, democracy, pluralism, and other modern Western values, devised for the dignity of the human. A welcoming atmosphere on the receiving end would certainly contribute to a better understanding. But when there is a serious threat to the security and well-being of an individual, when there is constant testing to prove oneself in all aspects of daily life, when there is no equal opportunity for education, for jobs, for decent accommodation, then integration can only have a shallow basis to succeed. Instead of understanding the immigrant people directly from themselves Sometimes we see that in Germany particularly, some so-called experts are too high in demand by the press, by the TVs, as their deeply critical views of the immigrants bode well with a general prejudice. Indeed, such experts' press, TV-supported views feed and grow prejudices. In my view, this approach also does not help good integration and can even contribute to popularization of racist, discriminatory, and xenophobic ideas. Well, I've talked enough of problems, now it's about the better picture. I'd like to turn to success stories, which are rarely visible to most of us, most of the time. Ladies and gentlemen, after 50 years of immigration, we have a different picture in front of us. As I mentioned above, 70,000 Turkish, German, small and medium-sized businesses and larger ones in Germany employ approximately thousands of people and generate huge volumes of euros. Turks are active in all walks of life in Germany. From the lowest of the low background, they've managed to become academics, business persons, politicians, writers, artists, musicians, film directors, sportsmen, sportswomen, bankers, lawyers, restaurant, hotel chain owners. Some are really big investors and entrepreneurs. You may be surprised to hear that in Berlin, for example, many Chinese, Japanese, Mexican, Italian, Spanish, and international restaurant chains are owned by Turks or Germans of Turkish origin. This should give you the idea of the spirit of an immigrant who might have come to Germany with nothing, but so determined to succeed in his or her new country and contribute to it. Maybe immigrant spirit is the one needed to alleviate current economic and financial problems. Ladies and gentlemen, Germany has a good pool of highly educated, well-disciplined, dedicated and hard-working immigrant young population, which demands more from the society. They want more responsibility and more participation. Participation has become the key word, and it should over time replace integration in my view, as younger generation of Turks and Turks of German origin believe that they have come a long way from integration, and now is the time for better participation in all fields of life. If this somehow does not materialize, then we could see the already existing trend to leave Germany for better prospects in other countries like USA, Canada, or sometimes in Turkey, could be further strengthened. Let me note that last year, around 40,000 Turks left Germany, while approximately 30,000 Turks came in. It is estimated that there is an outflux of Turkish immigrant talent from Germany, and these are mostly young, highly educated people who like to try their luck, for example, in Istanbul. To conclude, I would like to say the following. The path that the general discussion and policies on immigration take is important. The past shadowy path that led the whole world to disaster during the last century must be avoided. The uphill, cloudy, sometimes chilly, but potentially shiny, brave new path, friendly to immigration and multicultural democracy must be chosen. This choice would determine whether immigrant people would feel confident enough to carry on and to continue or give up on their ideals, those very ideals that originally belonged to the West. Now I'm tired of talking too much normally. Turkish diaspora in Berlin is not as patient as you are. Thank you very much for your patience.